Today, I'm going to talk about using Google Maps in Flutter, and I'm going to be using the Google Maps Flutter package. This will be part one of maybe a 2 or 3 part series. And in part one, I'm going to talk about how to add markers, polygons, polylines, circles, and I'm going to show you how to style your map using a cool tool that's available online. So let's get started. As you can see here, in my dependencies, I have Google Maps Flutter, and I also have a few assets here. So I have a assets folder, but let's go to the documentation. You can see here that it is in developers preview status. So there will be a lot more changes with this package in the future, and it might break your app. So stay up to date if you're going to use this package. But from what I've seen so far, it works pretty well. So if you go to the pubdev site, you can just add this line here, and this is your import here for your map. I'm not going to walk you through all this stuff here, but make sure that you add the Maps SDK for Android and iOS in your developer console, and make sure you add the API key to your Android app and the key to your iOS app too. Okay. And also in your console, I have my console up here. Make sure you add your bundle ID for your iOS app. For Android, you don't need to do this, but for iOS, you do. If you get an error when you try to run your app for the first time, this might be the reason why you're getting that error. So make sure that your bundle is added here. So I have one for my React Native app and one for my Flutter app. Okay, so let's go back to the GitHub docs here. And you can see here it's pretty straightforward. They give you a really good example, but I'm going to walk you through why you need to add different things to your map widget. Okay, so let's go back to the code. And right now I have the code from the master branch. The map icon in the floating action button takes you to the map screen. And the map screen right now is just a center text widget. So if you go to the map, gmap.dart, you can see that it's just a empty screen here with a text widget. And our main goes to the gmap screen. Pretty simple so far. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import that map package. So let's go back here and copy this and paste this into our gmap here. And I'm going to go down to our body and I'm going to add our map widget. So let's say Google Map. So this is required. So you need a initial camera position. And if you go to the docs here for that, let's go down here. You can see it takes in a type of camera position, which has a target and a zoom. And there's also a few other things here that you can put inside of your camera position. So let's go to the code and we are going to create a new camera position. And you can see here it takes in 4 different things. There's a target, bearing, tilt, and zoom. We're going to add our target. For the target, I'm going to put in a lat long. So lat long is how you define a latitude and longitude pair. For this, I'm going to have 37.77493. And for longitude, I'm going to have minus 122.41942. And this is the lat long for San Francisco, California, in the US. So I'm also going to define a zoom of, I think 12 would be good. Okay, and let's save. Let's put this down here. And now let's go reload. I found with this package, you have to actually restart the app a lot if you want to see your changes instead of just reloading it. So let's go to the map screen. And you can see we have our map here. So that's really easy. I like this package a lot because the setup is really simple. And creating your first map is just these 4 lines of code here. So now let's say I want to add something on top of the map. So I want to add some kind of widget at the bottom of the screen here. That's always there. In that case, I want to make a stack. So I'm going to create a stack here. Let's take the map and I'm going to define the children here. So children. We have our Google Map, and then I'm going to define another widget under here. I'm going to say container. And for the container, I'm going to align it at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to say alignment dot bottom center. And for the child, I'm going to just add a text here. So I'm going to say text. Let's just say coding with curry. Coding with curry. Okay, and let's reload. And you can see our text at the bottom of the screen, but let's add a little bit of padding here. So let's do padding and do edge insets. Let's do 0, 0, 0, and maybe at the bottom, let's do 32. Let's reload, and that looks better. So now that text is always there at the bottom of the screen. So that's how you add some overlays on top of your map. Pretty straightforward. So now I'll show you how to add a marker to your app. So markers are added by using sets. So you want to define a set of markers that you want to use in your app. So let's go up here to our state, and I'm going to define a set of type marker. And I'm going to say underscore markers equals, I'm just going to use a hash set. You can use a linked hash set if you want to, but that's up to you. Hash set of type marker. Oops. Okay. And if you want to see what the marker is, you can go into here and you can look at all the different fields that the marker has. You could define a icon on tap, a position, a rotation, etc. We're only going to focus on a couple of these things here. So now we have our marker set defined. But before I go on with that, I want to actually know when our map has been created for the first time. So I'm going to go up here and create a function called void on map created. And this will take in a Google Map controller. So I'll talk about this in a second too. So we can just call it controller. And then I want to actually put this function into a field in our map called on map created. Okay. So if you look into the Google Map widget, there's a lot of stuff in here, but we're only going to focus on a few of these things right now. So you see we have on map created, and you can see it's a method for when the map is ready to be used, and it receives a Google Map controller. So let's go back here, and so we have our on map created. So our controller gets sent to this function here, and I'm actually going to set a local field in our state for our controller. So I'm going to define a Google Map controller underscore map. Let's just call it map controller. Okay, and then I'm going to set that to our controller here. And we'll use this a bit later. And now I want to set the state on this widget by defining our markers. So I'm going to say set state. And I'm going to say underscore markers dot add. So I'm going to add a marker here. So I'm going to say marker. You can see the marker ID is required. So a marker ID, if you go into here again, you can see marker ID. Where's it at? Marker ID is of type marker ID. So then you have to put a type of marker ID in here. So marker ID, and this is a string. So for now, I'm just going to define it as 0. If you're getting this from an API or something, you would probably have an ID in here. Maybe you're using the places API and you have a places ID. You can put the places ID into your marker ID, have it be the same thing. But make sure this is unique in your app. So we could say position, and this is a lat long. So I'm going to say lat long. And I'm actually going to have it be the same as our target here. So let's just copy and paste this. Okay. And now we need something called an info window. So if you go back to the marker again, the marker code, you can see info window. Info window takes in a title, snippet, anchor, and on tap. So this will be what you see when you tap on the marker. So we can go back here and we can define a info window of type info window. And then I want the title to be San Francisco. And then I'm going to define a snippet here. So snippet, I'm going to say an interesting city. And let's put this down here. There's 2. So now we can go down here to our Google Map and we have a markers field. So we can say markers underscore markers. Okay, so let's save and restart. And now you can see we have our marker here. If we click on the marker, you can see we have our title and the snippet here. And you can zoom in a little bit. If you don't know how to zoom out in your simulator, just hold down the Option Alt key on a Mac and you can zoom in and zoom out. Now let's define a custom icon for our marker. I'm going to go up here and create a new function There's different ways to do this, but I'm just going to show you one way. And I'm going to say void set marker icon. And this will be async. I'm doing it this way because I only have one marker, so not really a big deal. This will be async because I'm going to use a asynchronous function. So the marker icon is going to be a bitmap descriptor. So bitmap descriptor, I'm going to say underscore marker icon. If you want to know more about what a bitmap descriptor is, you can go into the code here. I'm not going to go into all this right now, but basically it defines a bitmap image. Okay. So I'm going to say underscore marker icon, and then I'm going to say equals await, because we need to wait for this to return a value. Bitmap descriptor, I'm going to get a image from our assets using this function here, from asset image. Image configuration, again, I'm not going to go into all that right now. You don't need to create a custom configuration, but this has to be something. So you could say image configuration and just have it be the constructor without actually defining any of these things here. And then for the asset name, this is going to be a string that points to the asset location. So it'll be assets dot, I have a noodle icon. You can see it here. Keep in mind, if you're adding new assets to your app, you normally need to rebuild your app. Okay, let's go back here, and it'll be noodle icon dot png. And now we actually want to call this function. So I'm going to create the init state method, and I want this to happen at the very beginning. So I'm going to say set marker icon. So that's save and reload. Let's go to our map. And we don't see it yet. Oh yeah, so we need to actually use our marker icon. So let's copy our marker icon field, and we put it into the icon field of the marker. So we do icon underscore marker icon. Let's save and restart. Go to our map. And now you can see we have our noodle icon here as our marker. And our info window still works the same way. So now let's add a few more things to this map to make it a bit more interesting. Let's go up here and add a polygon. It'll be a enclosed shape that's based on a few different lat long positions. So I'm going to go up here and create a new set. I'm going to copy and paste this set, and I'm going to say set polygon, copy, paste, and I'm going to say underscore polygons. Okay, and you can look into the polygon class if you want to. You can see there's a few different fields here. It requires a polygon ID, and you have a fill color, point, stroke color, stroke width, etc. And I'm going to create a new function here. I want to say void underscore set polygons. So having a set of polygons means that we can create many different polygons on this map, and each polygon has a group of lat long positions. So I want to create a list of lat longs. So lat long, and then I'm going to say polygon lat long list, or just lat longs, and equals list lat long. So this will be a list of lat longs for a specific polygon. So to save time in the video, I'm going to paste in some coordinates from my notes here, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to say underscore polygons dot add, and I'm going to create a new polygon. So for the polygon ID is required. So polygon ID, that's of type polygon ID. And this is just a string, so I'm going to say 0 for now. And now we need to define the points, which are the lat long points. So let's do points, and then we just put in the list here, okay? Because that's a list of lat long points. And finally, I'm going to define a stroke width. So for that, it's called a stroke width, and I'm going to set it to 1. So let's save that, put this down here. Okay, and now we want to actually call this function when our widget first loads. So let's go up here and call this set polygons method. At this point, we have our polygons defined here. So I want to use this set of polygons in our map. So we can say polygons underscore polygons. Okay, so I'll be using this convention going forward with our different shapes. I'll be creating a new function to set our items and then defining the set up here at the top. For the markers, I didn't want to do that because I wanted to call this asynchronous function first. So I hope that makes sense. We're creating a list of polygon lat longs and we're adding that list to a specific polygon inside of our set of polygons. And that set of polygons is being added to our map. And for our markers, first we're getting the asset that's asynchronous. So I want to do that when the app first loads. After we get the marker icon, I'm adding that marker icon to our marker that we define here. So I'm setting the state for that. Getting the icon might take a while. So I want to wait for that to finish. So after the map is created, I want to set our markers using the marker icon that we get back asynchronously. Okay, there's different ways to do it, but that's the way I'm doing it here. If you know any better ways, please leave a comment and let me know and let other people know too. Okay, so let's go back down here and let's save and reload. So now you can see that we have our polygon here. And you can zoom in and you can see that our polygon is black. If you want to change the color of it, that's pretty easy. You can go down here and define a fill color. So we can say fill color, colors.white, and we can, reloading doesn't work, as you can see. So let's restart. And now you can see that the fill is white. If you want to make it opaque, you can define a RGB and transparency if you want to. But for now, this is okay. So now I want to create a polyline set. So let's go up here, copy, paste. I want to say polyline. So polyline. And I'm going to say underscore polylines. Okay. If you want to see what this is, you can go in here. We have a lot of the same type of parameters here, but we have points, width. Width is the width of the line. Color is the color of the lines. Now I want to go down here and create a new method called void set polylines. And you can see a pattern here. So we can say list of lat longs. Actually, let's just copy and paste this. And let's say polyline lat longs. And I'm going to paste these in for my notes too. So let's paste these in, and these are the same coordinates as our polygons, except I changed the latitude here. This polyline set should appear somewhere down here below. Okay, so let's save. And then let's call our set polylines function up here. So we're going to call that there. And then down here, I want to say underscore polylines. And then I want to add a new polyline. This will be polyline ID. And this will be polyline ID. I think this, what is this? Polyline line ID. Oh, okay. And we can leave it at 0 too. So there's no fill color, but we can say width here is 1. And we can define a color if you want to. You can say color, colors.purple. Okay. And then for our map, we could define the polylines field here and just paste polylines into here. So let's save and reload. And now you can see our polylines here. Now our polygon is not there. It might be because I'm using a hash set. So I'm going to change this to a linked hash set. So these are ordered correctly. Let's just do linked hash sets here. Save, reload. No, that's not it. What did I do here? Polygons, polylines. Oh, oops. I put this in the wrong spot. So that's why. Yeah, be careful when you're copy and pasting things like this. So I'm going to change all this back to polygons and then paste that into here, polylines. Then we have polyline lightlines. Okay. So let's reload. And now our polylines are not showing up. Polylines, we need to go back and add that again here. Polylines underscore polylines. Okay, reload. Okay, and now you can see we have our polygon here, and then we have our polylines here. So I made the same shape with our polylines. If you remove this last point here, which is the same as our first point, then you don't get an enclosed shape. So let's see how that looks. You can see we don't get that last line here. You can create a lot of interesting shapes if you want to on your map using polygons and polylines. So let's go up here, and now we will define a circle. We'll follow the same pattern here. We'll have a set of circles. So underscore circle. For circle, you can go in here to the docs and you can look. We have our fill color for the circle, the center point. So you only define one point, which is the center. And you define the radius of the circle, the stroke color, stroke width, etc. So let's go down here and create a new function called void set circles. This function will be more simple than the others. So you can say underscore circle, let's say circles, underscore circles dot add, and then we just add our circle. So we can say circle ID. Circle ID is a string, so we can say 0. And then we can define the center, which is a lat long point. So we can say lat long. And for this one, I'm going to say 37.76493. And then I'm going to say minus 122.42432. And this one should be somewhere in the center of these two shapes here. And then I'm going to define a radius. The radius, I'm going to say maybe, so the radius has to be very large. You can see the default value is 0, so don't leave this out. I'm going to say 1000. And then I'm going to define a fill color. So for the fill color, I'm going to add some transparency to the shape so you can see underneath it. So I'm going to say color dot from RGB 0 actually. And it's going to be some kind of purple shade. So I'm going to say 102, 51, 153. And opacity, I'm going to say half, so 0.5. And then I'm going to call set circles from our init state. Okay. And then I'm going to use our circles field down here. So we have circles. And then I'm going to say underscore circles. Okay. And let's reload. And now you can see we have our circle here. That width looks pretty bad. So let's go up here to the set circles, and I'm going to define the stroke width as probably 2 and reload the app again. That looks a lot better. So you can see we have our circle here now. So this is how you define different shapes in your map. We have our polygon, polyline, and circle. So there's a couple more things I want to do for this video. I want to show you how to put your current location on the map. That is actually very easy. So we just go down here and there's a field called my location enabled. This is actually false by default. So let's set it to true and reload. And now we have my current location. This is not my current location, but you'll always see this location if you use the simulator on your Mac. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is I want to show you how to style your map. So I found this website actually that's pretty cool. It's a map styler for Google Maps. And it creates a JSON of styling for you to use in your Google Flutter Maps app. And you could probably use it in your Android app too. I'm not really sure. But it works great for Flutter apps. If you go down here, you can see more options. I'm going to go to all. Actually, let's go to the water, and we can play around with this for a little bit. I'm going to say all. Let's change this to green. So now the water is green. Or if you want the water to be black, you can change it to black. And you can play around with this. And you can change the text of different things. And you can play around with this. You can change the text color of different things. You can change the road colors, etc. So once you get done with this, you can press finish and it'll generate the JSON for you. And then you can either copy it to use from an API, or you can just get the JSON. So if I go back to my app here, I already have a map style JSON that I copied from this site. So I just copied this into here. And now I'll show you how to actually use it in your app. It's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to create a new function up here. I'm going to call it void set map style. And this is going to take in a Google Map controller. It'll be Google Map controller and controller. And this will be asynchronous. So async. And I'm going to define a string style here, and I'm going to say equals await. So now we are going to get a style using default asset bundle. So if you want to know more about this, look into here. You can see it's a widget that determines the default asset bundle for its descendants. And you can read all this stuff here, but you can say default asset bundle and dot of, pass in the context, then dot load string. So now we just load the string of our map style JSON here. So we say assets / map _ style .json. And then we set this style to our controller. So we have our controller right here actually. So we say controller .set map style is the function you use. And then we just add in our style here. And that's it. And we can set our map style when our map is created. So we can put that below the set state here. We can say set map style and pass in our controller. So we could say, we don't need to pass in our map controller because it's at the top. So yeah, let's actually just get rid of this here and just use _map controller here. That's actually easier. And then we could just say set map style. Okay. So save. And now let's reload. Let's see how this looks. Okay, let's go to the map. And now you can see that our map has some crazy colors. So this is the style that I defined for our map with some pink, red water and black land and purple text. Looks pretty crazy, right? So yeah, this is pretty cool. You can actually style your map using this map styler. I'm not sure who made this map style tool here, but it's pretty cool and it works well with Flutter. So, okay, so I think I'm going to end the video here. I think this is good for part 1. In part 2, I'm going to go over more overlays for the map and trying to animate the map to different positions. And I'm going to show you different ways to handle the click events for your widgets in your map. So I hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for part 2 and happy coding. Bye.